So I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really been a huge fan of Busker. When the music first came out, I thought, oh good, finally something that's popular that sounds different. But honestly, it sounds too different. The singer's voice is so distinct that you get sick of it after a little while. They're kind of distinct for being, you know, an indie band that is popular because of the TV show Superstar K Season 3. And aside from that distinct voice, the drummer is a foreigner. He is now possibly the most popular foreigner in Korea as a result of that show and as a result of the group's popularity. His name is Brad, and he recently gave an interview where he kind of revealed everything about the experience, and I have now the utmost respect for him and the group and what they've gone through. Basically, he talks about the inhumane treatment of people in the music industry. And keep in mind that even though the show is run by a music company, the people on the show are just contestants. They're not like professional musicians, and most importantly on the show, they were not making money. They did commercials and they did not make any money from them. But the bigger problem is the conditions and the treatment they got while they were, you know, on the show performing and doing whatever. They were denied sleep, they were denied a certain amount of food, they were criticized for their looks, they were encouraged or sort of forced to get Botox. Their cell phones were taken from them, they were forced to live separated from the rest of the world. To be denied sleep and food, no one deserves to be treated that way, and you don't hear people like speaking out and complaining about that kind of treatment often enough. So apparently after the contest was over, they didn't win, but they were encouraged to sign with the music label right away and then go on tour, and Brad specifically said, no, we need a break, we need a rest. He said that if he hadn't demanded that, his bandmates probably would have just signed right away, but they stood with him and they said, you know, we need a break, we've been under this stress, under such ridiculous conditions, we need to relax, and got their way. They were given 6 months off, and then when they eventually signed a contract, they made very specific demands on the contract and they got them all. Now I'll provide a link to the article that has the interview. You have to keep in mind that maybe he wasn't just so one-sided and down on the show. The interviewer probably had an agenda, wanted to bring out the bad stuff about the show and the Korean music industry, and either asked all negative questions or only provided the negative answers in the published interview. That may not necessarily be fair to Brad depending on what he actually said, but I think what was published was important. He later like kind of went back on it and he's like, oh, I didn't really understand Korea at the time, I'm learning the language now, like I'll try to do better. It didn't seem like a genuine apology or that he necessarily wrote it himself. But regarding what he said in the interview, what's done is done. The information's out there and more people can refer to that when getting into new things. Now some might say, well, speaking of getting into new things, you know, when he signed the contract to be on the show, didn't he realize what he was getting into there? I sincerely doubt that the contract specifically said, oh, we're gonna deny you sleep and we're gonna deny you food and force you to live and act the way we want you to. Some might say, oh, that's just how the Korean music industry is. But is that the way it should be? You know, does that give companies the right to pretty much abuse their talent this way? Some might say, oh, well, they're not talented before they start the training and then after they're talented, so don't they need to go through that kind of rigmarole? What are the companies doing hiring people who aren't talented to begin with? Why don't they find people who are talented and focus on that talent and not necessarily just their looks? But then I guess there's the argument, well, if you're going to apply and try out for a Korean talent show, you kind of know what they're going to want to expect and what they want from you and what they want you to look like and whatever. Well, I guess that is the pop industry, and pop is pop, and if you want to go into pop, that's what you can expect. But I do think there should be higher standards, higher ethical standards, and more, you know, speaking out about any breach of these standards in the Korean music industry.